Hey everybody, I'm starting my video today by making some collage papers that I want to use on the art journal page I'm going to create. And I'm working with our brand new stamps. They are in the shop already and they are 10% off until tomorrow. So maybe you want to check them out. I will link everything in the video description. I have a jelly print laying here which is quite neutral. With just a little bit of a pattern on it, and I really like that color, and I thought this will work perfectly with the vintage images from the Mix It Up stamp sets from our new ones. And I'm going to stamp them onto the paper, and I plan to use this for the collage I am going to add on my art journal page. I'm starting here by stamping that script stamp with an ultramarine blue ink because I thought that would match the orangey background quite well. I'm using StazOn because I'm stamping over acrylic and that dries super fast and does not smear. I also decided to stamp that old book page stamp, but I used a piece of foam underneath my paper to make sure to get a better impression because it's quite, it's not so easy to stamp on acrylics with StazOn and the photopolymer stamp because it's quite sticky, especially when it's new. That gets better when the stamp gets a bit more used. But it absolutely helps to lay something soft underneath the paper, and always make sure to have the ink pad fully filled with ink. And with this kind of stamp, I would recommend giving it a good press in the middle, but not on the edges, because then you will get a thicker image on the edge and thinner in the middle. So it's important to just stamp and just press in the middle part of the stamp. I'm filling that whole sheet of paper so I can tear it into pieces and use it for my collage. I also stamp another quite vintagey stamp onto a piece of that jelly print because I really like that. I'm not going to use it on this art journal page, but I think it's a wonderful image for any kind of background or junk journal, and I really like it, but I will not use it on this page. I'm now starting my art journal page, and I'm using that action art journal that I've used quite a lot in the past weeks. I love it so much because the format is wonderful and the paper is also super nice for mixed media. I'm starting by adhering some of the papers that I've just stamped. I just teared out some pieces in different sizes, and I'm using the Tombow glue stick. As I'm going for a bluish background, I also picked some kind of bluish papers from my stash out of my little boxes where I'm collecting the smallest pieces of collage paper, and I always try to use them up. So whenever I need a certain color, I go through the pieces and try to use one of those instead of tearing up a new big print. I'm covering this with a layer of clear gesso to protect the papers and to make the paper work for the Neocolors that I plan to use. I'm going to create a similar spread like the one on the right. There is already a tutorial for that. I will link it up in the info cards. And I'm just starting out with bluish colors this time, and whilst my background is drying now, I'm going to prepare my focal images. I have already started by stamping the loose florals onto a piece of watercolor paper, and I'm using VersaFine Clear ink for that because this is the best ink if you want to have a crisp and sharp image. And I just stamp all the flowers that I can get onto this piece, and I will also stamp some of the leaves that are on the set, and then I'm going to color them in loosely with watercolors. I will not color in every single image because I don't need that many, but by stamping them all now, I have some ready to be used for future projects. I have sped up this part of the video because that took me about 20 minutes, I think. So I don't want to bore you with stamping and coloring in, but I will go back to real time once I start creating the whole art journal spread. I'm now coloring in the flowers, and as I said, I do that super loosely. I don't care if everything is in the lines or stuff like that. I just go in quite experimental with the watercolors. In the meantime, my background has dried. The clear gesso does that very quickly, and here I have a bunch of Neocolors in bluish and greenish tones, and I will now go in and just color the background quite intuitively in a playful way by just applying the crayon and then dipping my finger into water and blending the colors. that's a really fun process. If you don't have Neocolors, you can do something similar with the Stabilo Woodys or any other water-soluble crayon. If you don't have any water-soluble crayon, you can use, for example, the distress crayons or the Gelatos, which are a bit different but work in a similar way when they are wet. Something else I would recommend, you can use gouache paint if you have. You can use watercolors, but this will be a bit different compared to the Neocolors, as the watercolors are transparent and the Neocolors are more opaque. You, of course, could also use simply acrylic paints in a similar way. As I said, I'm doing the whole process quite playful with my fingers. I think I really enjoy that. Especially the Neocolors are water soluble and you can easily wash them off your fingers. And also it's different compared to using a brush when you go in directly with your hands. I wanted to bring in just a little bit of texture, a little hint, and I'm going through the Leaves 2 stencil with a baby wipe, and I just remove a little bit of the crayons. As I have a clear gesso background, it's not so easy because it has quite a lot of grip and will hold the paint you put onto it. If you're using something like gel medium or matte medium, it's more smooth and you can remove these crayons more easily. But as I said, I just wanted to bring in a little bit of texture so that there's some variation going on the background. The background is still a bit wet. I will let it dry and then come back with some stamping. I picked the leaves from the flowers stamp set and I'm going to stamp them onto my page. I have laid that piece of foam underneath the page to make sure to get a good stamp impression. The problem is that the foam is smaller than my page and you have to take care to always position it right underneath. Otherwise you will mess up your stamping, and that's what I'm going to do in my next step. That's a bit annoying, but I will fix the problem, and in the end it was maybe a happy accident. And here it happens. Unfortunately, I didn't have that foam positioned underneath the area I wanted to stamp, and now I have a double stamp. It's not quite nice, but then I decided I will cover this with some collage bits, which gave me some more depth in the end, and I think it was not a problem at all. Maybe it was, as I said, a happy accident, because I really like how this whole spread turned out. It's time for some splatters on the background, and I'm using the Art Craft Tailor shape from Viaco. I get asked a lot of questions about it. I try to not forget to link it underneath. I really love the white of them because it's so opaque and it gives you the most white splatters you can get. As it's a kind of watercolor, you don't want to work over the top of with any wet mediums, so it will smear. But I know that I'm not going to do this on this spread. And what I'm also picking up the blue crayon of this, and I'm going to make some blue splatters with this as well. When my splatters are dry, it's time to place all the images. I'm not sure which of them I'm going to use, if I want to use all of them or just parts. And what I do, I lay out the flowers and try out how I like them. And then I will come back and adhere them with some wet craft glue. I will not record the gluing of the elements because it's just adding glue and pressing the pieces down. I'm going to arrange them now in almost the same way that I am going to adhere them later. I think I will on the final page there are not as many flowers as I'm going to as I'm adhering here. I really like the contrast between the flowers and the background. I think it was the right decision to use these colors in combination. And I also really love that the stamped leaves on the background are working so well with the whole composition. I have glued everything down. I did this off camera, and here I'm stamping a sentiment directly to the spread. It's always kind of a risk to stamp the sentiment in the end directly on the page, because if you mess it up, you might mess up the whole spread. But I thought I will take the risk, and I'm happy with how everything turned out in the end. I also decided to stamp some of the butterfly wings from one of the new Mix It Up stamp sets, and I have made sure to lay a piece of thin foam underneath. Oh, I'm sorry for the sheeps in the background. I laid down a thin piece of foam to make sure to get a good impression on my background, and I'm using the ultramarine blue again to stamp these butterfly wings. I think the butterflies work perfectly together with the flowers. Yes, that was my page for today. I hope you enjoyed that video and you are maybe a little bit inspired. And I wish you a lovely weekend. Bye.